Good evening, viewers and listeners, and welcome to this another edition of Serving the People, brought to you every Wednesday evening at 6:30 on SVG TV Channel 9 by me, your host, Mrs. Anissa Batiste, Senator for the New Democratic Party. Please let us start with a word of prayer. Loving Father in heaven, please bless me with the truth in my heart, that I would speak it with vigor and strength, that the people would understand the seriousness of the times in which we live and how important it is for them to cry aloud and lift up their voices in protest against the oppression of this ULP government. Bless us as we do this work and help us to be free. In Jesus' name, amen. And now, my dear viewers, dear listeners, let me remind you that if you wish to contact me at this program, you may write to me at email address servingthepeople.ab@gmail.com, or you may call me. The telephone number is 528-1015. I'll repeat the information at the end of the program for your assistance. First of all, I would like to say a very special thanks to all my friends and supporters in West St. George who supported me in making a successful New Year celebration party for over 200 children. It was held on January 22nd in Bel Air, and I'm grateful for all the persons who put in their time, their energies, who did snacks and other lovely things to help the children to have a nice, clean, fun time that was safe. There were no accidents, no incidents, and we are glad that the children were able to enjoy themselves. I hope to make this an annual event by God's grace. It was my first time, and I'm thankful again to all of the people who helped me to make it a successful execution. I also would like to announce for the people of West St. George, and by the time you see this program it would be gone, but I just want you to be reminded of the fact that the new ID registration procedure is taking place by the electoral office every Friday in the newspapers. At least for the last 2 or 3 Fridays, they're publishing the schedule, and you can listen out on radio from me and persons from West St. George Constituency Council who will announce the dates and the times when there would be new ID card registration taking place in your areas in West St. George. I know for this week, registration took place at the Doris Mackey Learning Resource Center. That was on Monday, and also this evening, earlier to this program, it would have taken place at the Daphne Community Center. I have noticed that each time registration takes place, it takes place at 4 to 6 in the evening, and it's usually on a Monday and a Wednesday in West St. George. But I will keep you up to date, and you can listen out on the radio for information about it, because if you haven't been registered yet, if you've just turned 18, you can go out and get your new ID card. Get registered, because you never know when elections will be called, and we want you to be ready so you can go and vote for the New Democratic Party. Vote for me, Anissa Batiste, in West St. George. So listen out for those information. Now, in this evening's program, I want to talk to you about our situation where we have these new taxes and new increase in water rates that is going to be put upon us shortly. Now, you may have heard a bit about it before, but I want to address it with you here in this evening's program. I want to start off by really setting the context. In the budget debate, we saw that the Prime Minister of this country, the Minister of Finance, he really does not have any real plan to stimulate the economy and to cause this country to make money and create jobs for the people. And so his budget was filled with measures that would cause you to have to pay more on an already short budget yourself, meaning that more money is not being put into your hands, but you're expected to do more with less. And I want to explain to you briefly and to remind you and to point out the fact that this is not a situation we fell into overnight. This is a situation we fell into because of the Prime Minister and his government's own mismanagement of the economy of this country. Usually, you would hear them say that it's because of the economic crisis. They blame it on the economic crisis going on in the world. But the facts are that it wasn't just the economic crisis. The fact is that St. Vincent and the Grenadines' economy was not doing well for many years, even before the economic crisis. And as a result of that, it caused us to not be ready and prepared to face the crisis when it came upon us and caused us to suffer terrible consequences as a result. I want to read for you a few words from the 2011 Article 4 report from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. What they said is instructive. They said here, unlike many developing countries which entered the crisis with strong public finances, St. Vincent and the Grenadines had been running deficits for several years, and by 2007, public debt had risen to 55.7% of GDP, etc., etc. The point I want to emphasize, the IMF is here saying, and this is the truth, that when the economic crisis came upon the world from about 2008 thereabout, and we entered the crisis already financially weak. We already had a situation where we didn't have strong public finances. Why? Because St. Vincent and the Grenadines had been running deficits for several years. I showed you in this program before how that unlike the legacy that the New Democratic Party had left, where while in government we ran surplus budgets. We had budgets where not only did we have enough money to spend on the things that needed to be spent on, but we also had a little more for a rainy day. We also had a little more from which we could take local counterpart funding in the case where grants from other countries required us to put up a certain amount. We had a little more for those things. We had surplus, or an amount in addition to what we needed. But this ULP administration, when they came into office, they continued the culture of running surpluses for just about 3 years or so after they came into office. And then they began to run deficits, meaning they began to present budgets to us where it didn't balance. We didn't have enough that we would need to spend, but they said we were going to spend anyway. We were going to spend above what we really knew we could make. And by doing that, what it meant is that for the money that was short, the deficit, we would have to borrow. This meant that for the 7 years that the ULP ran deficits, where they didn't have enough and they said we would still spend this amount, they borrowed a lot. And by borrowing and borrowing and borrowing for those 7 going into 8 years, they ended up taking the country's debt up. So the debt increased as the deficit increased. So you ended up in a situation today in 2012 where you have a very high public debt. You don't have money to spend that you need to spend. You're still saying you're going to spend a lot anyway. But what would have happened over the years is that a lot of areas would have suffered, because in the end, when you check at the end of the year, when you check the performance of the government, you would have noticed that they were not able to spend in certain areas that they should have spent in. The IMF is saying that this was the problem of the government when it entered the crisis. It already had a weak financial structure. And as a result, when the crisis came, it couldn't stand the shocks. You know, the Honorable Daniel Cummings used the scenario of a cold and the flu season. If your immune system is not strong going into the flu season, when the flu comes around, as we would say, you're likely to catch it. And because your system is weak, you're going to catch it and you're going to be seriously affected by it. Whereas if you are working to build your immune system over the period leading into the flu season, and you had a strong immune system going into that flu season, when the flu came, other people around you falling down with the flu, and you wouldn't get it. Or you would be strong to resist it, to resist the shocks of the effects of the flu. It is the same thing with the country and its finances. This ULP administration ran a bad economic policy where they were spending what they didn't have and borrowing to spend. and they had high debt. And as a result, when the economic crisis came, they did not have the strength. The immune system of the economy of the country was not strong to resist the economic flu that came upon us. You understand what I'm saying, my dear people? That's the reality. Don't make them go around your head with saying blame it on the economic crisis. Blame it on them for mismanaging the country and not strengthening the country for a rainy day, not strengthening the country for the economic flu. They, the ULP, are responsible for that. Now, where are we today? We're in 2012. And in 2012, we heard a budget from the Prime Minister that told us several things. What we saw in particular was that there would be certain revenue measures that when you look at them and when you look at the issue of the increase on the water rate, it shows that the government is in fact putting their debt onto us. The debt that they have to pay, the monies that they have to raise now, not only to carry out programs but also to pay their debt, they are now looking to you, the people who don't have money in your hands. They're looking to you to find that money. And that is not right. It is wickedness and it is oppressive. Now let us set the context. Remember, it is clearly shown in this year's budget that there is no salary increase. No salary increase for public servants. We cannot say that we have seen any serious job creations that mean you are getting more money into your pockets. No, everybody is crying out. We know that these are the facts. In light of that, what do we have happening? Let's talk about the water increase. You may have seen the program on Sunday night, Gone with Daniel Cummings, where he explained at length the fact that the government has approved, the cabinet has approved an increase on water rates for the CWSA, the Central Water and Sewage Authority. And this increase in rates simply means that you are going to have to pay more on your water bill come end of February, God willing. This increase in water rates comes to us with the revelation of the fact that the government has been owing the CWSA over 3 million EC dollars. Yes, this is what we learned from the Honorable Daniel Cummings when he made his budget presentation. He revealed to us, and it has not been denied by the CWSA, that this very government who is now asking you, the people of this country, the poor people of this country, to pay more on your water bill, this very government is owing on its water bill about $3 million or more. What is that? Daniel Cummings explained to us that, first of all, the government already pays less for water than any other consumer. The different departments of government who come under this water bill that the government gets, they already pay less. They are heavily subsidized, or they pay water rate that is discounted. They get a discount. Okay? Fine. Well, one would think that having a discount, they could at least pay their water bill because they have a big discount already. No, the government has been owing over $3 million to the CWSA. And Honorable Cummings is saying that this, he believes, is the reason why we have to have an increase in water rate now. And he has revealed in his question to the manager of the CWSA that the CWSA did not even consider asking the government to increase the amount they pay for water, seeing that it's already heavily discounted. And they're not asking them to pay their debt. They're accepting that payments is slow with the government. Well, you have to ask yourself, do they accept from you payment is slow when you owe a few $100s? Or do they not cut off your water and then you have to find $100 for reconnection fee? Could you go on to owing the government owing the CWSA thousands of dollars without your water being cut off? Well, the government of this country is owing over $1 million, over $3 million. And they are not being asked to pay a little more. But you, the people who don't have any salary increase, who don't have any jobs, you, the people of this country, are being asked to pay more while the government gets away with their irresponsible and mismanagement of the country's resources that they are there to manage, including to pay bills with. This is unacceptable, and we have said this on this program, and I want to make it clear. Not only is it unacceptable, it is a wicked and oppressive government who would look at their country's situation, look at the people's real situation. You know your neighbors whose water have cut off. You know your water cut off too. You know how long you haven't been able to pay. You know what it is to have to go to the neighbor and beg for water, to have to help the children to get something to eat in the morning and their clothes to wash, the school clothes and so on, because you have to go to school the next week. You know what it is. You can't even feed your children sometimes. And now you have to find more money to pay on your water bill. It is wickedness. It is wickedness, and it is oppressive on the part of this government. Why should we be paying their debt? Why should we, the people, be paying their debt and paying for their mismanagement? But that is not the only thing. Let us look at another matter. And I want to talk about the issue of the property tax, just briefly, because I want to make a very important point. Do you remember that during the time of the referendum, the issue of how much you should get for your property if government has to acquire it compulsory, it became an issue. What was the issue? Well, when the Constitution Review Commission did its report, which they submitted to the House of Assembly on the 28th of September 2006, they would have gone around the country, St. Vincent the Grenadines, and even in the diaspora, and they got feedback from persons on what they would like to see changed in a new constitution. And one of the things they reported on was seen in section 343, paragraph C, page 92 of their report. And they said, and I quote, "When compensation is assessed for compulsorily acquired property, such compensation should be assessed on the basis of the open market value of that property as at the date of the compulsory acquisition." End of quote. The CRC said, look, this is the consensus of the people. The people are saying that the current constitution does not deal with this issue of compensation properly. If you're going to bring a new constitution, this is what we would like to see. The current constitution says that compensation should be adequate compensation. But in reality and in experience, people have found themselves in battle with the government as to what is adequate compensation. Therefore, the people would like the new constitution to be very clear and specific when assessing property that is going to be acquired compulsorily by the government. They want that property to be assessed on the basis of the open or the current market value, so that they can get truly what the market is saying their property is worth. They can get that from the government when the government is taking it by force. Because essentially, if the government comes and says, well, I'm going to put an airport here, I'm going to put some supermarket or some other thing here for public purpose, they can take your property. But they must give you compensation. The people said in the referendum, put into the new constitution, if you want to bring a new constitution, put it in there that the compensation must be open market value, current market value. I represented the Thusian Institute for Religious Liberty in those days, when before I became a full-fledged politician, and we said in the institute that they should write into the constitution a phrase that the current market value, it should provided that adequate compensation includes current market value of the property at the date of the compulsory acquisition. The government did not listen to the people. They didn't listen to their own CRC. They didn't listen to the people's consensus view. Instead, what did they put into the draft? This was the draft constitution, you remember it? This was it. What did they put in it? They said that it must be adequate compensation, that is, compensation which in all the circumstances is fair and reasonable to the person entitled to compensation and also to the state. I end there, end of quote. They came with this outrageous idea that not only did they rebelliously and stubbornly refuse to listen to the voices of the people in the consensus report of the Constitution Review Commission, but they also came and said that the compensation must be fair and reasonable, using these two open words again, which would be left to interpretation, fair and reasonable. And they say it must be fair and reasonable not only to you, the person whose property they're taking, but it must also be fair and reasonable to them. Can you imagine that? As if they are the ones who are losing their property compulsorily. This government is so selfish and so only thinking about making money off the backs of the people rather than facilitating the protection and the enjoyment of the human rights of the people. And this, of course, was one of the reasons why the people, by majority of about 57%, voted what? No against the government. Now, what did we have since then? Today, we are faced with a measure, a revenue measure that the government is bringing, saying that they are going to move the basis on which they assess your property, they're going to move it from annual rental value to market value. All that simply means is that whereas you would have paid property tax before based on what the average potential cost would be for renting the property, whereas you would have paid it based on that, now you have to pay based on current market value. Isn't it ironic and interesting that when it came to paying out monies to you for your property that the government is acquiring, they didn't want to say plainly in the Constitution that it must be no less than current market value. But now it comes to paying out money to them, you having to pay tax to them, the government, they are insisting now that your property will be valued based on current market value. Oh, how ironic. And oh, how much it shows this government to be a selfish one. Because when it comes to ensuring the people's rights are protected, they shortchange you. When it comes to ensuring they make revenue, because they so badly need the revenue, because they've so badly mismanaged this country, they are quick to make sure they squeeze everything out of you. My dear people, this is not right. It is not right in the sight of a God who does not take pleasure in seeing governments oppress the people. And it is not right insofar as it is hindering your ability to enjoy and to acquire private property, because it's going to make it harder now. And how? You, the people who pay in rent, I'm sure some of your landlords are already telling you, well, property tax going up, you know, because it's going to be on the basis of market value now. So you know what? You're going to have to pay some more for rent. So to the public servant who's not getting a salary increase, okay, who can't even get the 3% that the government owes them from since 2010, you now have to find more money out of your salary, which has not increased, to pay the government, because you're going to have to pay it on your rent to your landlord, who has to pay more in property tax, and you're going to have to pay out more for your water bill. So in essence, it represents a kind of salary cut, because even though they didn't cut your salary, now you have to look at the same salary that isn't going up, you have to look at it and take out more from it to pay more things that you didn't have to pay before. Under this ULP government, under this wicked and oppressive ULP government, my dear people. But you think that is bad enough? As if that wasn't bad enough, what have they done? This government has introduced a revenue measure, which is going to likely result in you paying more on the price for certain basic items. Basic items like cooking oil, salt, yeast, baking powder, shortening, sanitary napkins, baby diapers and napkins, toilet tissue or toilet paper, and men, women and children undergarments or underwear. Yes, how are these things likely to increase in the prices? Let me tell you how. The government has said that when it comes to the administration of the VAT law, they are losing sometimes. And they said, you know what? We're going to improve on how much we get from VAT. So they have decided they're going to move certain items from the zero-rated list to the exempt list. And let me tell you what is my understanding of that based on my discussions with technical people. To move an item from the zero-rated list, when an item is zero-rated for the businessman, whatever VAT he pays through the customs for those items, he is able to get it back when he files his VAT returns. So he could get back VAT when the item is zero-rated. But because the Prime Minister is now moving the items from zero-rated to exempt, it means that he cannot get back the VAT returns when he files them, because the items are now exempt. What that could mean by implication is that since he is losing, the businessman, on his VAT returns, he is going to be likely to put a higher price on the items. And it is going to mean that you, the consumer, are going to have to pay more for oil, for salt, for baby diapers, for sanitary napkins, which you and I, women, we need every month, for underwears, for God's sake. You see what is going on in this country? You're going to have to pay more, likely pay more in terms of price. And remember, there's no price control. So while they can't charge you VAT on them because they're exempt, they can put up the price of those items, and you will have to find the money to pay for them because you need them. Who doesn't need salt? Who doesn't need cooking oil? Who doesn't need sanitary napkins? Women. of the age. This is wickedness. But the point is, it's not so much that you can't increase things in a country. It is the fact that all of this is being done at a time when you and I don't have money. It is being done at a time when your salary is not going up. It is being done at a time when the banana industry has been killed by this ULP government, when they allow the black secretary to destroy your bananas because they refuse to spray by the incompetence of the minister, Montgomery Daniel. And you don't have money coming in from banana like before. You in the north, and you're so poor. You already can't send your children to school. Your bills being cut off, and now the government is asking you to pay more. The poverty is widening. It is the nationalization of poverty under the ULP that is taking place in this country, my dear people. And I am very angry about it. Because had they listened to the NDP when we talked to them about watching the deficits they're running, and don't go down that counter-cyclical policy approach, be more prudent, this kind of thing would not have to be happening now in 2012. So what you have is poverty is spreading now in the country. It's like the nationalization of poverty in the country. And essentially, you, the public servants, you're going to experience, and you're experiencing a salary freeze by taxation. Because your salary is essentially being freezed by these taxes. Your salary not going up, but you have to find money. Some people say it's a salary cut, in effect. Because you have to find money from the salary that already is not going up. You have to find money from it to pay these extra things. This is not right. Think about your children. You have to cry aloud, and I don't care who is vexed with me. When I sit on this TV and I say, and I demonstrate, and I say that when you come with these increased taxes, when you come with these increase on water, and you come with increase on property tax, and you come with making the businessman be in a position where he's likely to increase the price of these basic items like the salt. When you do these things, and I say, this is how we feel symbolically about it, is because this is how we feel. We cannot afford these things. We can't afford it. We cannot, and we will not tolerate it. So be angry with me if you like, but this is the reality of the people, and how do you want them to feel? They're human beings. Have you no heart? Is your heart of stone, Mr. Prime Minister, and your cabinet? Have you no children? Or maybe you're all well taken care of, and you don't care anything else about other Vincentians. But this is where we end this program. And I'll be coming to you in West St. George through Whistle Stops. And we'll be discussing these things. Because we cannot afford to not raise our voices at least and say how we feel in disgust about this wickedness and this great oppression of the ULP government. Remember that if you wish to contact me for more information, you can call me at telephone number 528-1015. Or you may write to me. The email address is servingthepeople.ab@gmail.com. It is about raising up your voices in protest against this great wickedness and oppression of the ULP. This nationalization of poverty by the ULP in this country. This salary freeze by taxation upon you, the public servants and others in this country. Let us sound our voices. Let us raise the alarm. Let us show that just as we voted no in the revolution of the referendum 2009, we will abolish and vote no against this ULP government. Let them call fresh elections if they dare. Call fresh elections if they dare. And we will abolish them, because this is great wickedness and oppression under the ULP. Thank you, and until we meet again, may God richly bless you.